Good morning and welcome everyone to this morning's Sycamore Board of Education meeting. It's 7:30 a.m. and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mrs. Logan, could you please do the roll call?
Mrs. Bitter.
Here.
Dr. Steger.
Here.
Mrs. Weiss.
Here.
And Mr. Comerford.
Here. Could you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do at the start of every board meeting, we have a reminder of our mission and vision. Our mission is to create a culture of academic excellence through inclusive and innovating learning opportunities for the whole child. And our vision is to empower all learners to reach their full potential in a globally competitive world. With that, I'd like to move to the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or input on the agenda? Hearing none, Mrs. Logan, could you please take the call? Roll call.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye. Agenda is passed. Next, the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Logan?
Weiss.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Comerford.
Aye. Next agenda item is public participation. Do we have any public participation requests?
I did not receive any emailed request, and Mr. Long doesn't have any.
Okay. Moving forward to the superintendent's agenda. The first item, could I have a motion for the change order junior high, high school, and age green intermediate furniture?
So moved. Second.
Just want to kind of just lay the groundwork with these. These are items that were alternates originally on the project. So we're at the point now in the project scope, having finished the high school, the junior high and green, that we're now looking forward to remaining monies that we have specifically in furniture funds and things like that to go after some of these alternates. So specifically speaking at the high school, the former front entrance there, heading in, if you're coming in by the theater, we're doing some remake of that area because that area was not touched. We did flooring, but that was about it. So we're going to clean up that hallway a little bit, do some soft seating furniture, create more of an extended learning area in there because of our orchestra music departments you'll often see kids out in that hallway. And so trying to make it long-term more usable space versus just a pass-through hallway. So those are what these change orders are if you see them. They're above and beyond alternates that we're finally accepting.
Quick question, what is the book room? Is that a storage room or is that a library? Just to get the terminology, sorry.
Yeah, great question. And that's a very difficult one because the name has changed many times. So if you're in the high school and you are in the hub, we created the new glass rooms that are there. Originally, in the original kind of spec of the building, that lower glass room was going to be the book room.
Okay.
And then it had turned into a classroom that kind of first year. And we pivoted back to the book room to put the books in there. And so we had shelving in there, but we also need some furniture to place in that room. And then that back room that was quote unquote the book room, which was a room that was somewhat behind the hub that connected to this innovation lab, that's going to be turned into the green room. So we did a little bit shifts with the new administration coming in on how we're going to leverage those spaces.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Any further questions? Hearing none, Mrs. Logan, could you please call the vote?
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
And Mr. Comerford.
Aye, motion passes. The next agenda item is change orders for the Seeger Family Auditorium.
So moved. Second.
Bubble.
I can just add commentary here if you'd like as well. So these are change orders that we knew were alternates on the natatorium project. And so as the health of the contingency moves forward, these are things that we've worked with the donor to enlarge the scoreboard and other items like that. So these were items we knew we would eventually take as long as the risk was low and we didn't use those contingency dollars.
Any questions for Mr. Lovell? Hearing none, Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bitter,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Dr. Seeger,
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye. Motion carries. The next agenda item is the change order for Sycamore High School renovation project, GMP number 2. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
These were what I spoke about earlier.
Any further questions? Hearing none, Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter,
Aye.
Dr. Seeger,
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye. Superintendent agenda item other. Do you have
Yes.
anything, Mr.?
You can see I'm not Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis is in Columbus with Mrs. Wagner at the BASA conference. So we're excited to be able to have both of them up there representing Sycamore. I'm sure they are going attending many amazing sessions. In his place, though, I'm just going to introduce Mrs. Tompkins and let her give some updates on curriculum instruction.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Congratulations to the Sycamore High School Marching Band who qualified for the state championship with a superior rating at OMEA in Wilmington. So the state marching band competition championship performance will be at Hilliard Bradley on October 28th. The weather turns cool this weekend, but the talent's going to be red hot at Sycamore High School Variety Show. So there are 2 unique shows on Friday and Saturday evenings, October 6th and 7th. Show begins at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. I'm very honored to have been asked to be one of the co-MCs for Saturday night's shows. So I'm so excited to see the talent of Sycamore High School students on display. And I'd like to take just a moment to publicly celebrate all of the incredible work that Sycamore teachers have been actively involved in the realm of curriculum. So we have had teachers who have been contributing to the design and decision-making about materials, curriculum units, and then identifying the supports necessary for implementation. But I just want to spotlight some of the groups that have been meeting. The math course of study team has actually had 2 meetings since the beginning of the year. The course of study team is made up of 25 teacher representatives from kindergarten through 8th grade, and then representing courses from Sycamore High School and Sycamore Junior High as well. During our last math course of study meeting, the team reviewed math materials that meet the standards of high quality instructional materials and decided which materials they would like to move into the review process. And then we have a meeting in October where they will actually begin reviewing some course materials in order to narrow down to potentially materials to pilot. 5th and 6th grade ELA subject leaders and the department chairs for the junior high and high school for English met, and we had an opportunity to celebrate the ongoing curriculum work that's been occurring within their departments, and then also review the alignment of those curriculum units and identify areas of continued alignment that needs to be within those units. They provided feedback on the articulation of the units and then shared areas of support that they feel they need within their departments. A voluntary K-4 literacy co-op held its first meeting last week. There were 19 teachers and elementary administrators who came in at 7:30 on Monday morning to talk about science of reading and structured literacy. So these meetings are opportunities to collaborate and communicate on ongoing literacy alignment around science of reading and structured literacy, focusing on language comprehension. So this professional learning and conversations of this group will contribute to the decision-making process as we identify materials and resources for that language comprehension side of the simple view of reading. And then finally, our first virtual common planning time, learning and support session was held last week. So this is a feature of the new elementary master schedule, is that it allows all grade level teachers to come together to virtually meet once a month for professional learning and support. So the focus of this meeting was a Google form was sent to teachers asking them for their celebrations and concerns around implementation of our word recognition program. We took those questions and found some answers and some resources and shared that information with teachers during that virtual planning time. All this has occurred since our last meeting 2 weeks ago. So it's been lots of exciting things that happened. Just wanted to share that our Sycamore teachers and administrators are exemplary. They are coming together and collaborating. There's active involvement, certainly lots of conversation as we make lots of important decisions for around curriculum and for students as we design and implement teaching and learning environments that are empowering all of our learners to be successful in our globally competitive environment. So many thanks to our teachers, to administrators, to the Board of Education as this work continues this year.
Tompkins, can you, the virtual meeting that you just spoke about, how many teachers were able to participate in that?
So the meetings are for all grade level teachers. So kindergarten teachers met at their common planning time during the day, all first grade teachers, all second grade. So it really is a way to boost the horizontal or the alignment across all buildings and build those collaborative conversations. Again, for that articulation, not only K-12, but within each of our 4 elementary buildings across grade levels.
Great, thank you for that great work.
And Ms. Tompkins, on behalf of the board, please do extend the board's sincere gratitude and appreciation for what you described as such quality work that's gone on in the last 2 weeks. Nothing's more important than the curriculum and how we grow our students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to agenda topic number 5, treasurer's agenda. Mrs. Logan, is there anything on the agenda?
I really don't have an item, but I wanted to just call out because if you look at the agenda under classified exempt, it looks like everyone in the treasurer's office is leaving. And so I wanted to just publicly kind of talk through that and explain some of those things. So we do have 2 people who are leaving for advancement opportunities. Sam Petter, yesterday was his last day. He served as our payroll supervisor and he is leaving for another school district for an advancement. And Amy Moore, who is serving as the assistant treasurer, has an opportunity to serve as a treasurer for Monroe Schools. She will be leaving us at the end of this month. So that has given us some opportunities between Brad and I to reorganize our office. So that's why you see all of these things that look alarming on the agenda, but there's some exciting things going on. Yes, we need to find some really quality people to fill some spots. I feel good about that, but I just kind of felt like I needed to just kind of mention it because it's on the agenda and I've already gotten some questions. So that's all I.
Yeah, it is actually nice to know that the experience at Sycamore allows our staff to get advance their careers in that way. I know Sycamore is regarded as a district of quality for other schools to promote from.
Coach.
Yeah, the word.
Yes, I will.
Logan, thank you for that update. And yes, you're right. When I saw that, I was like, I actually called you and I said, what's going on over there? But thank you for taking the call a couple days ago. I did have a couple things I just wanted to put on the radar, which I know are on your radar that we spoke about. But I think in a future meeting, it would be helpful for us as a board to understand all of the spending of our ESSER funds that came in during COVID. I know that Mrs. Weber was able to provide an update before she left, indicating that I believe most of the ESSER funds have been spent primarily, obviously, on education with our students, but just wanted to sort of see if we have anything left and what our plan was for spending those. And then as October moves forward, wanted to understand better the per pupil amount that we're going to be getting from the state under the fair funding that was passed in our conversation, and just some of the back of the envelope calculations that you and I did. It doesn't look like we're going to get as close to private school funding that the state provides, but we are inching our way closer to it.
Correct.
So as soon as those dollars come in, I think the board would be interested in seeing kind of where that lands.
And Mrs. Logan, I know that you mentioned that our payroll supervisor and our assistant treasurer are leaving, or have left, one has left, one is leaving. But we have here also the district registrar. Do we have someone in that role at this time?
So currently that position, so if you look at Angela, and I'm probably not gonna pronounce it, Spyro. She is serving as that person who registers all of our new students as well as accounts payable. So she will now be moving into, as long as it's approved, recommendation, and is to move her into the payroll supervisor position. We also have someone here, Patty New, who is working in capacities for both Brad and I that will be so transitioning into that spot.
Do you mind if I
You go right ahead, jump in.
historical perspective? So prior, my first year here, we had a student operations and district registrar associate. She left to go to another district, and when she vacated that position, what we did was we backfilled that with one FTE in the treasury department that was a split role, 50% business operations, and 50% treasurer's office. The theory behind that move was that registration enrollment ebbs and flows with seasons, and it complemented somewhat the functions of the treasurer's department. So Ms. New jumped in as my student operations associate, and then helped as well as the associate to the treasurer, where Ms. Spiro, she jumped in as accounts payable and then did the district registration. The challenge that we found in that, there was twofold. The first challenge that we had was that the rhythms that we associated with both registration enrollment and accounts payable actually didn't align like we thought we did. And there was a significant amount of work and overtime that was being created on that team. The other piece of it that we had was that the model fit well with a pandemic type model of registration and enrollment of being all online. What we have learned is that we have to bring the pendulum back some and do some in-person registration. We need to put our eyes on some of our families as a delicate touch to welcome them to Sycamore, to understand their story a little better, which means we need to do more in-person registration for some aspects. So that was not possible in the model that we have. The other thing that isn't easy is obviously sharing between departments when it comes to just workflow and efficiency. And so we found that this was an opportunity between Mrs. Logan and myself to clear up some workflow processes by breaking that position back apart the way it was 2 years ago, so that I can now have the ability to revamp some of our registration enrollment processes, plus have Mrs. New help me more clearly with structures and systems around student operations, which would be district attendance, discipline, and homelessness for Sycamore.
A quick question to follow up on that. The registrar, I know when we first moved here, was also checking residency. I know residents have moved out into the buildings. Is that going to come back into the district office?
Residency hasn't necessarily moved out to the building, so we've always our buildings have always been the first touch when it comes to residency checks. So basically what our buildings do is they verify proof of residency for our families. So they register here, we check proof of residency, we ensure that they're existing within the district. That paperwork goes to the building. Our buildings then are subsequently responsible for ensuring that leases are up to date and things like that. We don't do that here. Those are processes and systems that definitely need to be checked, revamped from certain aspects. But the goal would be with this position to really take a step back and talk about what are some of the processes and systems that we do. I mean, the reality is that in the size district we have of 6,000 students, even having one person doing registration enrollment, it's just one human, right? It's one person keeping up with all that. So we have to decentralize registration enrollment down to the building levels. At the same rate, what we don't want is too many hands in the pot, so things are missed. And so those are me getting somebody to help full-time with, well, somewhat full-time with that, being on my side of the department is going to help me really review and think about those processes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then I'm happy as well, to give an update at some point on registration enrollment as it relates to residency, the sort of special circumstances within our district that we have to navigate around, whether that be federal law or state law, so that the board feels equipped to be able to answer those questions to our community members, because I know that they're tricky. I can tell you every single day, our team sits down and wrestles with a situation. Whether it's talking with our attorneys or looking at what federal law says and trying to navigate around, how do we support this family? Should they be in Sycamore? Should they not be in Sycamore? It's not easy. And so this is going to help my team tremendously to make sure that we're doing the work that we need to be doing to ensure that those that are here in Sycamore should be in Sycamore, and those that are not are going to their right school.
Thank you.
Yep.
My only question, and I know this isn't a formal proposal
Sure.
yet, but the number of FTE that we have, while they've been shared, and then the idea is to break them apart, will the number of FTEs stay the same, or are you thinking of an increase?
I will say, right now, what I believe we are both doing is we are looking at what is the best structure. And then also looking at the capacity of the humans to do the things that we think are the complete picture of the full process that we need to be doing for compliance and for customer service, quite honestly, and all of those things. I do not feel good about answering that question yet because I'm so early on, but I also believe that we are not as efficient as we need to be with all of our processes. So once we get to a place where I feel like, yes, we understand what processes should be and they're efficient, and then we can test that and make sure. I just feel like it's early and I don't feel like I have that answer at this moment.
Okay.
It has been wonderful to be able to work with Mrs. Logan, coming in and looking from a different perspective of the processes and system in Sycamore. And I think one of the pieces that her and I are having a lot of conversations around is when construction is done.
Mm-hmm.
There's a capacity that exists within our team that we had prior to the pandemic, prior to construction. I'm so used to saying prior to the pandemic, prior to construction, that we haven't realized fully yet. And so it's really looking at, once we get through that piece, we know registration enrollment's a priority, like we have to do something there right now, and we did it and we knew what worked. And so getting back to that point, but understanding what capacity do both of our teams have post-construction when we're not managing all of that work, to say, what can we do moving forward and what is the talent we have?
Yeah, there might be a plan for it. And I believe there's a plan for right now. And then long-term sustainability of the departments and what does that look like? So we're really trying to look at it thoughtfully and in a good way. So
Reason that I brought up that specific position is just, my concern is that if we do not have a registrar, if we don't have someone that's really checking those residency requirements,
Yep.
we could have a real, shift and burden on different schools that could, drain resources for our students. Our teachers can be overloaded and not be able to provide services to the students that they need to, and then they're not, complying with the regulations that they have for each student. So it's taxing on our district. And so I just want to make sure that this is something that we take care of.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And our team works really hard. And I will tell you, there's two components to residency. We are very confident that as families register, that we understand their situation and can determine whether or not they belong in Sycamore based on a lot of factors in that family. Where we need to bolster our work and really think different about our work. It's how do we follow up on those families that have unique situations within the district? So whether that means that they fall under federal legislation like Kenny Vento, they're classified as homeless, or they were on a 1-year lease, or they're doubled up, all these situations. That's where the real work is, right? And so that's where I want to build more capacity in our team to ensure that we have the correct systems and processes to maintain that. When we hear or we learn of situations, we run after it. And we do what we can do within the rights of the law. And then from there, we think different about the future and how we might X, Y, or Z, right? But those are the two components of residency that we have to really try to work against. Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you, Mrs. Logan. Moving on to personnel consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Mrs. Logan, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Dr. Seeger,
aye.
Mrs. Bitter,
Aye.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye. Next, we have other board business. We have one agenda item under other board business, and that's the review of the board calendar. Everyone should have gotten that calendar in their package or their email, honestly, from Mr. Ballot. This topic was left for any discussion or comments or inputs on the board calendar. We'll open the floor.
I got the email, obviously reviewed the calendar. I think this is a good topic to just have at our next meeting as well, to just kind of round it out. And then also just letting anyone know who is kind of tagged in that particular topic area to know that they're going to be asked to present in that month, so it's not a surprise. But I think we're making progress on this.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should talk about it at the next meeting as well. And, like, for just one example, it says that it's pretty short and abbreviated, so I don't really know exactly what that encompasses. Not that we have to write out every detail, but I think it would be helpful to know what it means. So when we say staffing for September, what does that mean? Does that mean, what exactly does that define? Is that what we were just talking about with you, Mr. Lovell? About what kind of operations we need to be working on in your office, or is it our teachers, is it educational system? I think we just have to be a little bit clearer to what that is. And using MTSS, we need to at least have a general understanding. I know it's an acronym, and I know that it encompasses important items, but having just a general better idea of what that is.
Maybe we have a key that kind of has those things.
Because that doesn't,
like
I don't
bullet
remember,
points,
oh,
but
yeah.
Yeah. that's a
That
good
way, as a
idea.
board member, I can know what that actually is.
Yeah.
Clearly, we know what strategic plan is, but that's just one example for September. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we just need to be a little bit more clear as to what these things actually are.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The key, yeah.
I think also it'd be important to have all of us here to discuss it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's kind of where
I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't think we were gonna conclude on this. This was
Right.
just, I think, Mr. Ballot had a last minute trip overseas. And so he had asked if there was any input. Let's gather that and then we'll continue the discussion at the next meeting. So thank you, Mrs. Bitter, for your inputs, and thank you, Mrs. Weiss, for your inputs. Hearing no other inputs, let's move on.
can I add one other thing to other board business?
Sure.
I would like to ask the board to consider moving the evening meeting of the retreat to Mapledale for accessibility for those of us who currently have accessibility issues.
Moving the next meeting.
The next meeting and also the retreat for accessibility purposes.
I believe we're looking to move the retreat off-site somewhere, but we can make note of that.
Okay, thank you.
In either case, we should check the accessibility for Dr. Steger. Okay. Excellent. Any other board business? Okay. Agenda item number 8, executive session. I need a motion to move into executive session to cover ORC 121.22G3. To confer with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action. And ORC 121.22G2, the purchase of property for public purposes. Do I have a motion?
So moved, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Logan, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Dr. Seeger,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter,
Hi.
Mr. Comerford.
Aye. We will not be taking any action during the executive session, nor do we expect to take any action after executive session. So that concludes the public portion of our